President Trump just tweeted warning Iran that the United States has identified 52 Iranian sites and, quote, will be hit very fast and very hard if Iran retaliates. What's your reaction to that?
Well, it's probably a good statement by the president. I mean, I think the administration understands that there's a serious risk of consequences here. I think they understand that it's unlikely that the Iranian regime is going to now come hand in hand to the negotiating table and say, okay, you killed our number 2 guy, let's talk, we're ready to surrender.
Right.
They're not going to do that.
Right.
So he's trying to establish a warning again that they better not attack. It's probably not going to work. I'd say the odds are that given Iran's politics domestically, given the way the administration in Iran or the regime in Iran has handled itself, it's probably going to have to, for its own credibility, to hold its followers together, to intimidate those in Iran who don't believe in it. It's going to have to find a way to strike back. But here's the other thing that they have to understand, Essie, that they're looking at the United States. They understand our politics pretty well. And President Trump obviously understands our politics pretty well because he accused President Obama in 2011 of wanting to start a war so he'd be reelected. So the Iranians have to understand that they're playing into the domestic politics of the United States in a way that strengthens the President of the United States when they strike us. There'll be lots of criticism of him that's partisan. But the fact is that Americans rally around the leadership when Americans are in danger. That's just natural. Well, this could deter Iran.
Okay.
The odds are against it, but there is that's a factor that has to be considered.
So I want to make sure that we're not overreacting or underreacting. That's important to me. So I don't want to needlessly scare people, but I also don't want to underestimate the geopolitical consequences of all of this. So I look to you, the expert. You tell me. People are talking about this setting off a World War III. How likely is that? Put this in context for us.
I wouldn't say that this particular act is the trigger that immediately we go to World War III. This act probably takes us to a new phase in our 40-year struggle with Iran because we have been disproportionate in our response. And we've taken out somebody that they really value. So they're going to want to retaliate. And then the question is, what will we do? Let's say we do take out the 52 sites that the president has mentioned. What will they do then? And then what will we do in response to that? Because the difference in this operation versus, let's say, the operation that I led in Kosovo 20 some odd years ago is Serbia was a country of 10 million people surrounded by nations that were European and wanted to be part of Europe. They wanted to be part of NATO. Iran is a nation of more than 80 million people. It's too big. It's too diverse. It's too difficult geographically to ever think that the United States is going to go in there and occupy that country. We didn't do very well when we were against a smaller country like Iraq. So we're not going to go in there. So after you pound it and so forth, what are you left with? At best, a failed state. At worst, a state that maybe they do have nuclear weapons. Maybe North Korea is going to give nuclear weapons. Maybe Russia will come to their aid. We don't know how the geopolitics of this could spin out of control.
Well, in general,
it's too early to say it's a path to war, but it's dangerous.
What about Congress? Republicans rightly demanded that Obama seek congressional approval before airstrikes in Syria. Republicans were equally right in their outrage over Obama's extrajudicial killings and secret drone program. Should Congress have been consulted in this case, or is this different?
Well, I think that you don't want to, and I know there's been a lot. Foreign policy is a partisan issue, and it's become increasingly partisan over the last 30 years. But here's the nonpartisan view. The President of the United States needs the power to respond when American lives are in jeopardy. Now, he has notified Congress. He's gone through the War Powers Resolution. He had to notify Congress within 48 hours. He's done that. And so we don't want to take that away. But I do think that Congress, congressional leaders should have been consulted, both parties, and at least told what was going to happen so they weren't surprised. That's normal protocol. And so that wasn't done. I think the Intelligence Committee certainly deserved the full briefing of why this was necessary at this time. But having said that, this was a bad guy. And, you know, there's no question that he deserved it. The issue is what happens next.
So to that point exactly, this was a bad guy. Is it possible that this action was the correct one, but because this administration's foreign policy has been impulsive, it's been disorganized, it's been imprudent, I think even disastrous at sometimes, that doing this thing that may be correct, but it was dangerous because of who did it? Is that kind of a way to look at the partisan politics of this? This
Here's the problem. This President of the United States has been, he's departed from conventional American foreign policy. He's been more idiosyncratic, and he's been less responsive to our allies than he has to a bunch of dictators. And so the people that would normally support us and say, yes, he's done the right thing, they're looking at this and saying, well, why did he do this? And where's the evidence? So we need our allies when we're doing something like this. They provide us intelligence. They provide us backup. They provide us an alternate way to try to solve these issues in the region through diplomacy, negotiations, through back channels. So we don't want to be the Lone Ranger here. And it's possible that when you do overwhelming response, disproportionate response like we did, you'll shock the Iranians so much they jump back and say, oh my God, we have to stop. But there's nothing in the 40-year struggle with Iran that indicates they would do that.
Yeah.
They're more likely to come back on us.
Real quick before we go, President Trump said yesterday that we're not seeking regime change. I've heard sometimes it described as seeking behavior change. Is that possible in a place like Iran?
It might be possible. There are different factions we know inside the Iranian leadership, and we know that the man we took out was one of the ones who really pushed for an imperial vision of Iran and going throughout the region. But there are others who have the same views. I would think that it would be very difficult for us to accept that Iran would credibly change its behavior long term. That was the point of the negotiations. We were supposed to move and get a better commitment by Iran on its behavior. And this was the intention why President Trump left the agreement in the first place. So if we could get back to that, fine. But I'd say the odds are against it. And I'd say the overreaction or disproportionate response here makes it more difficult to get back. If you believe that there's a core of U.S. interest, then this action may not have taken them. But if you believe that there's a separate set of interests the president has, he's probably on more solid ground, because when the Iranians respond, it's natural that Americans are going to rally against Iran.
General Wesley Clark, thanks so much for your time and your insights tonight. Really appreciate it.